in about 4 weeks. 4 weeks. 4 weeks to dangle that carrot in front of us. 4 weeks and not knowing whether the season's over or not. Trade deadline, though, is tomorrow. So we got a lot to figure out. Well, the Sixers do in the next 24 to 36 hours, whether they're buyers or sellers. We got lots to talk about this morning. We're going to talk about the deadline. Barnard joins us shortly here. Guys, Train the AM. We're live with your thoughts and opinions in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You know the drill. Hit those like, share, subscribe, retweet buttons, whatever, wherever you are watching. Get that started and help spread the word. So we get everybody in on the conversation today. And joining me right from the get-go here this morning, we got my man from Fox the Gambler, from Pick Swap Media, from, I don't know. You work for too many people. So I'm not even going to read off all. If you don't know where this guy's from, then you're living under a rock. Sean Barnard, welcome back to the show, my man. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Phil. Appreciate you having me on. So it's exciting times in the Sixers world, and excited to talk about it. So appreciate you having me on once again.
Before we talk Sixers, I got one real big question to ask you here, and this is the question that everybody named me wants to know. What the heck is Sean Brace doing? He's going out to Vegas, and he's not taking you with him. I mean, he's got John with him. What a fugazi move. You're there working from every day, and he can't take you to Vegas?
I'm unfortunately the guy getting stuck behind the board back in Philly. So I'll be producing for them while they're out there. But yeah, they're having a good time broadcasting out there in Circa. So they're living it up Super Bowl week.
They're living it up, and you're stuck working. That is so unfair.
Yeah.
I'm calling Sean Brace out for that, just so you know.
Yeah, how the cards shake out. So maybe I'll get the A-team squad call up next year. Who knows?
There you go. You're part of the A-team. What's up, Brett? How you doing this morning? Bovado has Sixers favorite to get Clay. We will get into that with him in a minute here. Buddy and Bogdanovich. Yes, every boogie out there is connected to the Sixers. Yeah, I guess without connection issues. I know, exactly. It seems like everybody I have on here. Don't jinx it, Brett. Don't jinx it. Buyers. Enough with timid moves. This organization can't draft. All right, let's dive into this, guys. Obviously, the trade deadline is tomorrow, but yesterday we got the news. Joel's surgery was completed, and they're saying we are going to reevaluate him 4 weeks. Sean, first and foremost, we know way too much about knees and knee surgeries in this city. I've been talking about for the last couple days that they're just going to dangle this carrot in front of us in hopes that Joel Embiid is back at some point. Where are you with Joel, the surgery? Should they rush him back? Should they try to bring him back? Do you think he will be back? Because everything that you say and what the Sixers say determines what they do over the next 24 hours.
Yeah, the phrasing of everything has been very strange. And frankly, I think what their actions are over the next 2 days will speak way more towards the optimism for whether or not he returns than anything they could publicly say. I don't understand the logic in being so vague with things. And it's been this way with Joel for throughout really his whole career, and specifically this year. Like even dating back to the knee injuries that started throughout this season, that him missing 4 separate occasions in which it was multiple days with a knee issue. Never once was it labeled as a specific injury, just knee soreness, knee swelling, or knee injury management, which is particularly weird when you look down the injury report and it's so specific for other guys. Like D'Anthony Melton is down to which lumbar of his back is injured, and Mo Bamba is talking about a specific fat pad in his foot that was injured. So to see like such specific medical terminology for some of the other guys and Joel to just be like soreness and swelling has always been strange to me. And then with this specific surgery, they haven't even acknowledged directly that he's gotten surgery. We've seen, a repair, a procedure, different phrasings, but not exactly putting on the table. I think if it was a full meniscus repair, that he would be ruled out by now. That's more of kind of the 4-month timeline, at least, that's looking like. So I think it was some sort of the meniscectomy that was sort of a cleanup procedure to get things done. That would kind of paint between the 4 and 8 week return window. And I think honestly, what they're going with the Sixers mindset is the expectation is that Joel Embiid will return, but they don't want to fully commit to that in case there's something that goes wrong. And once again, I think what their actions are over the next 2 days will be much more indicative of what their actual mindset is.
So so I'm no doctor, you know what I mean? And you pronounced that Masa, whatever you said, you pronounced it so well there. I love it. I didn't even know what a flap was till like 2 days ago. You know what I mean? Uh, if it's a 4 day, they're saying they're going to reevaluate him in 4 weeks. They're saying he could be back in about 8 weeks. 8 weeks puts you right towards the last like 5 or 6 games of the season. I mean, you got to think this year, and you got to
Yeah.
go all in, kind of, sort of. But you also got to think about the fact that you got what, a 2 to 3 more year window with prime MVP Joel Embiid. Don't you got to think big picture? Isn't there a risk in rushing him back in 80% Joel Embiid? He has 4 games to build that cardio up, and then you're throwing him right into, as you know, Marshawn says, the play-in series, which we'll get to in a minute. Isn't there a lot of risk involved in rushing him big picture, or do you have no choice, but you still got to play the game that, you know, if he can come back, you've got to go all in now.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, obviously, the doctors hopefully have way more of a clear, concrete look at what specifically that knee is, and that's what the decision is being based on. And throughout the medical process here, I've joked a lot of times that I never thought it would come in handy, me being a physical therapy school dropout here, but covering the
So you're a
Sixers.
physical school drop, because Brett's a physical therapist, and he's been commenting on this injury all week long as well. So all right,
Yeah.
I didn't know we had that connection there.
Yeah, got through the undergrad, but didn't get through the grad school for PT. So I ended up in this lane, but that has come in handy covering the Sixers. And I
Mhm.
mean, as far as the Joel stuff, like the biggest thing to me is if he is making a return this season, you have to have a championship contending team ready around him. Like if the
Yep.
expectation is he's picking up right where he left off and he's going to be a guy leading the NBA in usage, scoring 35 points per game as the playoffs are here, that to me is just straight up unrealistic. But I think you can check multiple boxes at this trade deadline by going through and having a guy that helps the team stay afloat while Embiid's out, and that potentially being like the missing piece when he does return, whether that is a Malcolm Brogdon or a DeJounte Murray or even a Bogdanovich or a smaller piece like that. You have to find guys that can help in both areas. So you do have to accomplish both tasks with this. I'm
Mhm.
still of the mindset that like every year that Joel Embiid is this version of himself, you have to be all in, that he is that level of player. We don't know how long this window lasts, that if he is determined to commit back to coming back to this team, you do everything possible to give it the best chance to succeed. And I do think that even when fully constructed, him playing his best ball and the team playing their best basketball, they were still a piece away, which that makes it even more motivating that they should be doing something now. But I still think they were within a stone's throw of the championship contenders, which to me means you absolutely go for it this year.
See, the thing is, because all the names you're going to mention and you've already mentioned, and all the ones I'm going to bring up and the commenters are going to bring up, are all pieces that would have fit the puzzle with Joel here.
Right.
So, do you go out and just continue to fix the puzzle with the mindset that Joel Embiid is here, and then hope that once he's back, you're still in the playoffs and whatnot, or do you have to go out and get a bigger piece so that, you know, if he does come back, great. If he doesn't come back, you still got that piece. Because I brought up something yesterday, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. As right now we're constructed, this whole season it relies on Joel's knee getting healthy, but
Yeah.
staying afloat this season relies on a 23-year-old rising superstar in Tyrese Maxey. That's a lot of pressure to put on Tyrese Maxey. You know, yeah,
Yeah.
he's playing at a superstar level, but he's 23, and now he's being asked to carry a franchise for the next 8 weeks and keep them afloat. You know, you don't want him to. You don't want to put it all on him, right?
Yeah, I honestly think there's a little too much on Maxey's plate right now that I would love to get an additional ball handler and scoring option, somewhat of the Malcolm Brogdon or DeJounte Murray kind of mindset. I think myself and Daryl Morey have a little different view of this here is like one of the things that has consistently been brought up on Daryl Morey's end is this cap space plan and having the amount of flexibility this summer. I just disagree with that from the standpoint of we really just don't see big time names change teams in free agency anymore. It's so much more often by trade, which of course works for both sides because from the team perspective that they don't want to let these good players walk for free. So it's better for them to make a trade and get something in return. And from the player side of things, that you're locking up secure long-term money. For example, DeJounte Murray, who's likely to probably be the best player that's traded at this trade deadline, assuming something happens. This guy whose extension he signed last offseason hasn't even kicked in yet. And he's
Right.
a guy who is at the top of my list from a Sixers perspective for all these reasons, that I do think he's a guy that you pair him with Tyrese Maxey, that gives them a far better chance to win on a night-to-night basis. And if you take the best version of him in San Antonio and the best version of what he's been in Atlanta, that kind of is the player the Sixers are missing. But I do think Morey is scared off by the 5 years on the deal. But to me, that's a good thing. Like, that's a security. You know that you have that guy. And as people kind of like flinch at the contract numbers, at worst, Murray's going to be making $30 million in 27, 28. To put that into perspective, that's $10 million less than Tobias Harris is currently making for a guy that's straight up a better player. So to me, I'm pounding the DeJounte Murray train more than I think most are and than I think Morey is. And he's kind of more focused on these short-term deals. But you absolutely have to have the mindset of having a guy being an innings eater type of guy to get you through this run as well.
So my question, since you're obviously such a Murray fan, before we even get into what it would take, you're why are you so high on him? Because I kind of feel like with Joel Embiid, with Tyrese Maxey, it could work. But something I just feel like is missing from Murray, in my opinion. Like, he's been around a lot longer than people realize. I mean, I don't know. Is he really that much of a winner?
Yeah, I
You know,
mean, it's
because
fair.
I don't know. I know he might be the best player available. He might be the best you can add, but I just don't know about him.
It's fair to question. He's not like the ideal. Like, if I made the player in the lab that I wanted, it would be DeJounte Murray, but he is the best player available. And I do think that you kind of got to make do a little bit here. I like the concept of getting another ball handler to allow
Oh, yeah.
Maxey to play more off ball. That's what Murray can do to kind of free things up there. And he is a good rebounder as a guard. That back in the San Antonio days, him averaging over 8 rebounds per game, that's something that's very appealing to me. Back in San Antonio, he was a very good defender. That has kind of faded off in Atlanta, but I do have confidence that with Nick Nurse and on a team that is contending, he will lock back in on that side of the ball. So I like the defensive ability. I like him as a shooter, and he is a guy that has hit game winners like this year. Like, he is a guy that can get his own bucket, do his own thing. So it does check a lot of the boxes for me. It's not perfect in a vacuum, but I do think he's the best player available and the closest that you can get to this point. So that's kind of my optimism there.
Okay. So then what would it take? Because obviously, the big extension hasn't kicked in. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the NBA trade machine right now. Right now, you'd have to match $18.2 million in contract. So obviously, you wouldn't have to include a huge player contract, but it's going to cost draft capital and probably a fairly significant amount. What would you be looking at as the value? Because again, he's the biggest fish on the market. We're not going to be the only team, looking at him. I've heard rumors of Lakers and a few other teams looking at him. What would it cost the Sixers to make sure they get your guy and the guy you think best helps us?
Yeah, the draft capital is definitely the biggest selling point here. Frankly, my kind of mock trade idea for Murray, or what the ballpark, what I expected would be Marcus Morris, Jaden Springer, and then 3 first-round picks, probably some protections on one of them. I would say two full first-round picks and one with maybe either it's a swap or something along the lines of top 15 protected. It's a lot to give up, but I do think he's worth it. And like, I do think it's important to take that swing. That when we do talk about kind of the bigger picture of the Sixers team, what does it show Joel Embiid that you're kind of barking at these kind of opportunities to make the team better, to give them a fighting chance? And again, you don't know how long this window is. So to me, it is strike now. And if worst case scenario, if Murray does not work out, I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's untradeable or impossible to flip. That kind of salary point, that kind of number, and a guy that always is going to be a fringe all-star player, that's perfectly fine in my mind to be a third piece. So to me, it makes sense. He's 27 years old. That would be my big swing for it. I get people think it's a lot, but for me, I'd be comfortable with that.
So that's what I'm saying. Because basically, if you're using 3 picks, I mean, I'll refresh my memory. I know once the season ends, we gain a few more tradable picks, but that's pretty much the bulk of your prize chest that you can trade. So you're basically making just the one move. Maybe you make a small ancillary backup center move or something like that. But if you're making that Deontay Murray trade, do you have anything left else to make another move to get another bench piece or whatnot?
I do think that they're going to be moving a lot in the margins in way people that aren't quite expecting. Like, I expect KJ Martin to be flipped for a 2nd-round pick or a lightly protected 1st-round pick. I could see a Daniel House and Furkan Korkmaz for like a Andre Drummond and Torrey Craig and a pick kind of deal from the Bulls, something along those lines. So I think that they are going to be adding to the stockpile. And one of the reporters from Jake Fisher yesterday talked about them attempting to basically move up the ladder from draft picks, meaning that instead of having a 2028 first round pick available, that you swap that out to get like a 2025, which is more appealing to teams because it's sooner and all those things. So there's a lot on the back end that I think Daryl Morey is going to be working. I think that there's more flexibility than people are recognizing with this Sixers team. And especially when we talk about like Murray, like a team like the Lakers has even fewer to trade. Like they have a 2029 first round pick is really all they have to offer. So the Sixers are more in the driver's seat with more assets than a lot of teams out there.
Okay. We got so many names popping through the comment sections trade wise. You mentioned Andre Drummond because I do want to. I want to try to hit on as many of these names that people are commenting, but you brought his name up. I know we've brought it up on this show a lot. We do need another center in here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no matter what's happening, whether Joel's coming back or not, is Andre Drummond really the best option right now for the team? Because that's everybody keeps since he's left Philly a few years ago. Everybody's been last year at this deadline. We were talking bring Andre Drummond back. I like Andre Drummond. I think it could help, but is Andre Drummond really going to be that piece that really truly fills in for Joel? I mean, we got somebody saying Laurie Markkinen in the comments for the big man. You've got Kelly Olynyk. You know, I mean, I know he's not a starter either, really, but is Andre Drummond really the best option for them?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying Laurie Markkinen would be my dream, but I don't see a world where he gets.
I wanted Laurie Markkinen before the season started when he was
Yeah.
first on the market. So
Yeah, I have a couple articles out on Philly Sports Network back from the Bulls days of talking about Sixers going for him there. I love Laurie, and that would be my dream, but I think that he's not being moved for under 4 first-round picks, and frankly, I don't think the Jazz are moving him at all. Yeah, it's a lot, and deservingly so. Guy's an all-star. But as far as Andre Drummond goes, I do think he's viewed in the most positive light here in Philadelphia, that I think we remember the best parts of Andre Drummond, and he was the best backup center that we've seen during the Joel Embiid era. He's not a perfect player. Like, he has his flaws for sure. He would be the best rebounder on this roster, no doubt about it. And Joel Embiid included in that conversation. He would provide some rim protection in a way that Paul Reed doesn't quite do, and that Mo Bamba has been really inconsistent at. Been very underwhelmed by the Mo Bamba experience so far, and frankly, very frustrating player to watch out there for a guy that's 7 foot whatever, 8 foot wingspan and still struggles to rebound the ball. But for Drummond specifically, I think he's the most attainable guy out there that he's been kind of floating out there in trade talks. He very much falls into that innings eater category for me, that he would absolutely help during this period without Joel Embiid. But I also don't know how playable he is in a playoff series. Like, I think there's a real world where it's Drummond fills the starting role while Embiid's out, and then we get to the playoffs where Paul Reed is a better option for as a change-up off the bench. That seems to be the best version of Paul Reed, where he's a change of pace, come in, wreck some havoc, and make some madness for a couple minutes. Olynyk's a guy that appeals a little bit more for me from a playoff perspective, that he's a real deal high-level shooter. He's shooting 42.9% from 3 this year. That's a true stretch 4 that you can play next to Joel Embiid, so that does appeal to me in the way that, like, Tobias Harris has not. Tobias shooting the fewest 3-point attempts per game since 2015, 2016 this year, which is incredibly frustrating to me. So I get the appeal from Olynyk for more of a long-term standpoint, but I do think backup center should absolutely has moved up my list of priorities with Joel out and just seeing how bad things have looked of late.
Do you, I mean, because they're the only names we've heard. Are there any other backup bigs available that people aren't talking about enough or at all right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot that are kind of floating out there. Clint Capella is a guy who I've heard a little bit about. That's a tough salary point to swallow for me. He's making around 20 million, that's a ton to give up for a guy.
He's on the hook next year for 22.
Yep. Yeah. So there are guys floating around, and the Hawks seem very open to moving on to Capella to give Onyeka Okongwu kind of the starting role there, who's been very good. So I think Drummond and Olynyk would probably be the guys I consider the most likely. Dallas is looking to move some pieces around with potential guys that can space the floor and stuff like that. So I would probably put Drummond and Olynyk as kind of the top 2, but you can't be surprised if a random name pops up for sure.
You mentioned already, you're not just disappointed in what the Mo Bamba experiment, but hasn't Paul Reed been a little disappointing too? Like, yeah. I know a lot of Sixers fans love B-ball Paul, but I kind of gave everybody a little warning, like, Carol, like, watch what you expect out of that kid. He's only so good. I don't know why the fans can't move on from these guys and, just realize that Paul Reed's just not, anything special, really.
Yeah, I mean, so I like Paul Reed as far as a backup center option. That the thing that appeals to me about Paul specifically is he's a far different style of play than Joel Embiid, obviously. That I've kind of disagreed with the logic of when you look back on this track record of Sixers backup centers, the Dwight Howards, the Andre Drummonds, the DeAndre Jordan, the Greg Monroes, Amir Johnsons, all these guys, like they essentially were just a worse version of Joel Embiid. So when you try and play the same style with them on the floor, it's a huge drop off there. So when you bring a guy like Paul Reed as the backup, it's a change of pace. It's a guy who's switching 1 through 5, who's getting out in transition, running the floor. It's a guy that like plays the position differently. So I like that as like a change of pace backup options. He gets overexposed when we see these extended minutes, and we're seeing like he hasn't quite taken these developments from a guy that has added to his bag as far as offensive end. And I also think that as much as we criticize Doc Rivers for the management of Paul and the frustration with him, I think Paul was so like focused on not getting yanked off the court last year that he played within like the tight box of what he was supposed to do. We're seeing him with a little more freedom with Nick Nurse, and at times it's just like Paul Reed going off the rails for a couple moments in time. So I think we see the good and the bad with all of that.
Absolutely. I was really disappointed the other day when Nick Nurse spoke about wanting to see them step up more consistently, and then they came out and just put up a massive clunker immediately after Nick Nurse did that. I've said it before on the show, and this kind of gets off topic, but we need more of our executives and coaches in Philly to be honest and truthful with the media and the fans, like Nick Nurse, because I mean we're getting a whole new coach and culture with him, but that part of it is not discussed enough. Just how straightforward he is with all of us.
Yeah, and it's a nice contrast coming off the Doc Rivers experience for sure, because Doc was quite the toot his own horn and kind of portray things and not exactly as they were going on, as if, we're not all watching the game and seeing what's happening as well. So the Doc there was definitely felt the frustrations there. Nick Nurse has been a nice change of pace from start to bottom, from the management of the team, the rotations, the lineups, how creative he's been with a ton of stuff, changing defensive formations just about every stoppage, and his management of everything as well, even his handling of Joel. I thought it was cool him speaking to kind of the mental side of Joel the other day, which was asked kind of about the status of the knee, and Nick Nurse kind of shifted gears and talked. And like from a mental standpoint, he's been a little up and down right now. That you got to feel for the guy, that he's a competitor, wants to be out there, and he's going through it right now. So it has been cool how Nick Nurse has managed this team, and that is one of my biggest reasons once again for why they must go for it this year. That's a championship caliber coach, and he looks like it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to some of these other names here. You mentioned it. Commenters mentioned it. We've all mentioned it a lot. Before Joel went down, my number one choice to add to this team was Malcolm Brogdon. Now, I don't know if he's the right answer with Joel missing most of the rest of the season, but Brogdon to me was the perfect fit next to Maxey in the backcourt. You could slide Anthony Melton whenever he's back, which is supposedly very soon, back to a bench role where he belongs. That strengthens your bench to an extent. Is Brogdon a realistic expectation in the next 24 hours to be a Philadelphia 76er?
Yeah, I think he is. That the lone negative that is kind of sticking to him is the $22.5 million cap hit for next year that he is on the books for next year as well. But Brock is really good, man. Like, it's never been a question of how talented he is. It's always been the injury concern. So this is a guy who's a 40% three-point shooter who's just basically floating out there in Portland, asking for a contender to come get him. I know he's spoken about how he likes it out there and feels appreciated, but this guy was the sixth man of the year last year. That he tore the Sixers up in a playoff series last year. Like, he is a high caliber shooter. He's a guy that can get his own bucket, can play make. It speaks to kind of my theory or desire here to give Maxey an opportunity to play off ball a little more, just free him up and take a little responsibility off his shoulders. So I do think Brogdon is going to be gone and got from a contender, and I do hope that it is the Sixers. I like his game quite a bit. I think he goes underrated in the conversation for just how good he truly is.
I wanted him before, literally like 2 stops ago, to be joining the Sixers. So if Dejounte Murray is going to cost you 3 first-round picks, I think you can do the salaries with Marcus Morris or whoever. You can make the salaries work. It's not going to cost 3 first to get him.
Yeah,
you get him for 1, maybe 1 in a protected or something like that. Like it's obviously a lot lower of a cost. What could you get him for?
I think that's probably fair. I would probably guess a similar starting package with Marcus Morris. That $17 million number, it makes him by far the most movable player on my mind. So I would think somewhere along the line of Marcus Morris. If you are dead set on keeping Jaden Springer, then I think you probably shift to either Daniel House or Furkan Korkmaz, and then add 1 definitely first round pick and probably 1 protected. I think that likely gets the deal done for Malcolm Brogdon. It makes sense from the Trailblazers perspective to move on for them, that they're kind of in no man's land and in a rebuilding era. You want more minutes for Scoot Henderson, for Anthony Simons, and the young talent that they are developing out there. So makes a lot of sense for both sides. If Jaden Springer is a needle mover for them, which I think there's potential, I think he's played really well of late. And for me, that is more motivating for driving up his trade value than the long-term picture. I like Springer, but he's not a guy that I'm dead set on keeping by any means. So that's a guy that it will be interesting to see the Sixers mindset on that.
Here's the question, though. You've now mentioned two specific trades, Brogdon and Murray, and you keep putting Mars's contract in there. With Joel Embiid going down, we've seen them use him as a small ball center. Can you really afford to move Marcus Morris in a trade?
Yeah.
Because like right now he's a pretty important, like he wasn't supposed to be, but he's kind of an important part of this rotation right now. And you're making one spot much better, but you're definitely going to hurt your bench in the back end of your team by moving on from him. Is he's kind of a must, but do we really want to move on from him, and how you replace him?
I've enjoyed the Marcus Morris experience far more than I've expected to in Philadelphia.
Agreed.
That I expected him to be fully washed up and cooked, and that hasn't quite been the case. He has shot the lights out for stretches of time, and he enjoys being in Philadelphia for sure. So I feel bad for Marcus to an extent, but it is that you have to give to get. And with the NBA specifically, sometimes that number has much more to do with the likelihood of being traded than your actual ability or who you are on the court. That 17 million, I think, was fully intentional by Daryl Morey to have as the guy. Like, he's the third highest paid player on the Sixers this year, which is pretty insane. And that's kind of what you need to make this number move. Once again, the Tobias Harris contract very much holds a great deal of the salary cap hostage. That the $40 million or 39.2, I think it is, that he's officially on the books for. That's a lot. It seems like Morey has no interest in moving Tobias Harris, which is frustrating to me, but I get like wanting the light at the end of the tunnel to get that 40 million off the books. So for me, it comes down to the number, and you have to make some sort of center move anyway. I don't love the Marcus Morris at the 5 experience anyway. I prefer him.
No, I don't. I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying, like, I kind of feel like, and I love this comment from Marshawn, one at Morris versus Jalen Brown in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, I do. We miss that kind of guy. I don't know. I don't know where that production would come from. You would have to be making multiple moves to improve the overall aspect of the team, because he's a viable part of that bench right now, and he's very important to that bench right now.
Yeah, he is. I mean, in this case, like, you got to think from a scoring perspective, which I would still consider his biggest strength. Like a Malcolm Brogdon deal, Malcolm Brogdon, an even better scorer than Marcus Morris is, and improving on those numbers there. And like the defensive side of the ball, I don't think he's a great defender. I don't think he's a great rebounder. He tries, he competes. So I give him credit there, but he is limited in that area. So any one of the names of the Kelly Olynyk's, the Andre Drummonds, even Paul Reed, I think, is better as just a pure rebounder and defender on that side from the big man perspective. So I like Marcus. I appreciate what he's done here, but not a guy that I'm unwilling to move by any means.
All right. So my man Mitchy Poo in the comments brought it up 3 times today. He put it in my head like a week ago, and I've been talking about it, semi-sarcastically, semi-realistically, as a cheap grab. And that, I mean, crazy to say cheap, but Klay Thompson. He is falling out of the rotation. He's falling out of favor in Golden State. Golden State's not even that good. They might be willing to move on from him. I know he's having a down year. I know Klay Thompson isn't who he used to be. But what are your thoughts on the idea of Klay Thompson, a championship caliber player, getting a little fresh start here in Philly if the price was right?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by it. That I think Klay, I mean, we know that this is not the version of Klay Thompson. He's no more the two-way guy. He can't defend really at all, and he's far more valuable to me on a roster with Joel Embiid than one without him. That I think we'll see like the benefits of Klay Thompson once Embiid returns to the floor. It is funny to me though, like he's being talked about as having such a down year. He's still shooting over 37% from 3, which is the worst of his career, but he would immediately still be one of the best shooters on the Sixers. And he's doing that on like 8 3-point attempts per game. He's absolutely fallen out of favor in Golden State. We're seeing Brandon Pochevsky and Jonathan Kuminga both closed in the lineups over Klay Thompson at this point. Saw an interview him after the last game where it was really kind of heartbreaking to see how broken he looked and felt. And shout out to Klay for handling like a professional. He said all the right things, but it was one of those where you could clearly see in the guy's face and his expression that like he was hurt. He wasn't feeling it. So I think like a change of pace could be good for Klay and his mentals as a whole as well. I would be open to at least rolling the dice and giving it a chance. they need a shooter that I think if a high volume 3-point shooter would absolutely change the entire look of the Sixers offense. So for me, I don't have the door closed on Klay Thompson, but I would approach negotiations with a careful price tag that I'd be much more willing to empty the clip for a Murray or a Brogdon compared to a Klay at this point. And I don't know if the Warriors would exactly feel that same way.
I just look at it. What are we now? I mean, you're better with stats and stuff than I am. Really, like 26th, 27th in the league in like 3-point attempts a game, and you know we're not taking. We need guys that can put that's how this offense is built, especially when Joel Embiid is here. You need a guy that's going to do it. Klay Thompson. I mean, you might be able to get him pretty cheap. Honestly, salary wise, you would have to match, but that's another subject. Moving on from him. Next name we've seen in the comments a few times. We've been linked with the Bulls a lot. I'm not going the Caruso route. We've already talked Drummond. It's somebody said a few times now, DeMar DeRozan as an option. Is DeRozan a guy that fits in here? Because we know what DeRozan is. He's not a 3-point shooter. You know what I mean? And that's what we just spent a few minutes talking about needing. But DeRozan is a guy that gets shots. He might not be 3-point shots, but he gets his shots at a pretty good clip and all. Thoughts on DeRozan or some kind of DeRozan Drummond combo package from the Bulls?
Yeah, I think there's a real chance of it, and my optimism and desire for it has increased certainly after the Embiid injury. That DeRozan does strike me as kind of the innings eater type guy that can fill up buckets while Embiid is resting and getting back to himself. My biggest concern is I don't see a world where DeMar DeRozan and Tobias Harris can exist on the same basketball floor at the same time, that neither one of them are guys that like to shoot threes, both more mid-range heavy, and especially when you have a superstar in Joel Embiid that is very mid-range heavy himself, you got to surround it with shooters. So I would be open to DeRozan. Frankly, I think he's an upgrade from Tobias Harris, and he's just a really solid basketball player. Like averages over 5 assists per game, gets to his spots. He is a guy that will take some big shots in big moments, can create for others, rebounds, is constantly in the right spot. He's just really solid. Like I really appreciate him as a basketball player that I would love to see in a Sixers uniform. To me, it would have to be in a Tobias Harris trade, and I personally would be 100% on board with making that happen. He's also on a 1-year deal, which I think appeals to Daryl Morey from the low risk kind of things. So I do think that there is potential for a DeRozan and Drummond sort of package. That's something that makes sense to me. We'll see if it actually happens, but I'm very caught up on to make that happen. You got to get rid of Tobias Harris in the process.
I mean, there's actually quite a few. I keep hearing Tobias's name, not on the Sixers side, including him in a deal, but teams calling for Tobias. That expiring contract is obviously valuable, but so is, Tobias Harris to a young team. Like I keep hearing Detroit linked with him and stuff like that. And, a young team looking for a playoff, a guy with experience, a locker room type leader. Tobias in his last year is finally actually the most valuable than he's having his worst on the court year in a few years, but yet he's more valuable now than ever before. What are the odds that he gets moved at some point, whether it's in one of these big deals or to a bad team?
I think very unlikely, unfortunately, that I think that Morey very much views getting that $40 million off the books more valuable than anything he can get in return here. And I think even a team like Detroit is more likely to strike in free agency than go make a trade for him at this point. So I personally am very open to it, would love to see it, but I think that Morey is keeping that close to the vest.
Okay, gotcha. I see his name in the thing, and I saw a bunch on Twitter before. Buddy Hield, both Bogdan are both Boogie guys. Any of those names appeal to you in any way?
Yeah, I've been a Buddy guy for quite some time. That I love his game. I don't understand why Indiana wants to trade him. That he is having statistically a step down year for sure, but he's a guy that fits their system, is willing to rip threes all the time. All these guys that we mentioned, both the Bogdanovich, Buddy Hield, they would immediately, Klay Thompson, all 4 of them would immediately be the best shooter on the Sixers team, and that is a big deal. That as you mentioned, the 26th in the league in 3-point attempts. It's not a deal breaker that every team's constructed a little differently, but I think it's very important to have that balance when you have a Joel Embiid who is going to operate in the mid range and take shots out of the post, all those things. So if I had to rank them, I would probably put the Atlanta Bogdanovich, I think, is a pretty high asking price. That's talking about like the 2 first-round pick kind of conversation, which to me that's too much for him. I like Bojan in Detroit quite a bit. That I think he's a better defender than he gets credit for, and he's still got a little spark in him that I like. That people forget. Back in the Jazz days, like this was the dude test with matching up with opponents' number 1 options, and some of that was by default that there was not a lot of good defenders on that team, but he still went head to head with Kevin Durant and a couple other guys in some big moments. And he does compete. And I think he still has that in him. He's a 20-point per game scorer this year who can shoot the lights out as well. And Buddy Hield is a guy that can absolutely catch fire. I envision a little bit even more than what we've seen with like the JJ Redick, the Seth Curry, the Marco Bellinelli or Georges Niang kind of shooting ability, that gravity that Joel Embiid commands, playing off that with some dribble handoffs. I think Hield's a more polished basketball player than he gets credit for. Can put the ball on the floor a little bit, can dribble, can handle, can pass. So I like Buddy. All these names are guys that I would be open with. And frankly, I think you need to get at least 1 or 2 of them by the deadline for sure.
So, I mean, are there any names that were like, is there a name that intrigues you? Because all the names we've talked about, we've all heard them. You know what I mean? Like on this
Yeah.
show, on other shows, the same names keep getting circulated. And there's not many fresh ideas or new ideas or secrets rolling around right now. Are there any names that you like that aren't being talked about on a regular basis?
A guy that I'll throw out there that's pretty polarizing is Jonathan Isaac. That from a pure basketball perspective, I understand he's got some baggage that comes with it that people don't love. But from a pure basketball perspective, he's like an all NBA caliber defender. He's every bit of the rebounder I think this team needs. I specifically have a concern with the rebounding that come postseason time or whatever the issue may be. They don't have a guy that I'm confident can get that. Even Joel himself is a guy that like struggles to rebound at times, or for his size, he still kind of lucks into the 10 rebounds game, but he's not what I would consider like a great rebounder. Jonathan Isaac is, and he is a guy that can switch on every position on the perimeter, can truly put guys in an absolute blender defensively where they can't get out of things. So that would be an impact player. And I still have a concern that as you look ahead to a potential playoff run where you got to match up with a Jason Tatum and a Jalen Brown and a Giannis, like you need a guy that can potentially go toe to toe with him. For me, Jonathan Isaac could be that guy, and he doesn't seem like a piece that is a long-term part of the Magic future. So I would love to take a flyer on him.
All right. Kyle Lowry. I know that's another name that people are talking about, and I don't know whether it was you or somebody else made a joke. God forbid if the Sixers' only move is bringing in buyout market Kyle Lowry. Do you have any interest in him in a buyout market? Because I wouldn't trade a bucket of baseballs, for him. But as a buyout market addition to this team after the trade deadline, if you go out and get Brogdon or DeRozan and go get Andre Drummond, and you are going to try to stay afloat till Joel comes back, I think people are writing off that Kyle Lowry could still provide that veteran leadership on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, if a free roster spot is available, if there is like a 3-for-1 trade or 2-for-1 trade and you have room to sign a guy, whatever, like I'll take him. But I'm certainly not moved by bringing Kyle Lowry. That there was a point in time in which I would love to have Kyle Lowry on the Sixers team. That was several years ago at this point. And I don't think that there's much more on the basketball court that he does that, during the Jimmy Butler years.
I want this guy back. This is who
Jimmy.
I want. I've actually said that was my bold thing is to go out and get Jimmy Butler. I know it's not likely, but what harm could it do to bring Jimmy Butler back to Philly? That was my bold move a couple days ago, I said.
Yeah, I would love to see Joel Embiid working the phones a little bit, giving his man a call and seeing what's going on down there in Miami, because it's been a weird year for Butler as far as really hasn't been on the court much and everything that comes with him. But the Lowry conversation, for me, I don't think at this point in his career, there's much more that he does on a basketball court than Pat Bev, who's already on this roster and checks a lot of similar boxes. I've been pretty impressed with the Pat Bev minutes this year. I think offensively, he's been better than advertised, and we know what he brings from a spark standpoint, an intensity standpoint, and leadership standpoint. So I would take Kyle Lowry, but I certainly would not be moved by him coming to this team.
Yeah. Jimmy and Kobe. We got a Jimmy and a Cody Martin sighting here. But this one here, this is like we're gonna learn, like we said at the start of the show, we're gonna learn everything about this Sixers team. The next, if this is the move, what Brett is saying, we joked about this yesterday. If all we get is bringing Danny Green, Montrezl Harrell, and Kyle Lowry all in here, that tells me that Joel Embiid is not going to, be healthy, and they're just trying to float water. If this team makes decent moves, just say it's Brogdon and I don't know, pick any random 2 guys that they bring in here. Can they tread water? Can they hold water and be in a good enough spot so that when Joel's back, they can make their run?
I think they can. That I still think like there's work to do. My ultimate prediction, I think there's probably three smaller additions that are made. I think Andre Drummond. I think one of the shooters. I'm gonna go with Bojan Bogdanovic as my prediction, and I think either a Malcolm Brogdon or a Tyus Jones is an 8-point guard. So I do think that they end up checking all three boxes. I don't think any of them are quite the caliber of player that we're hoping for, or that I think would ultimately change things. But I do think you change the look of this team, and I don't think this team is that far off from contending. It is very dependent on whatever the Joel Embiid situation when he comes back. But I do think that if you do check all these boxes, Embiid comes back looking like himself, that this could be a potential championship contender. And as great as the East is, like it's deep, but none of these teams are top to bottom that much better than the Sixers, I feel. Even the Celtics, who are far and away the leader of the pack, like to me, they're not like this isn't the KD Warriors that you have to go through. You have a fighting chance in this series. And if Embiid is playing like himself, he's the best player in that series. So I still have optimism. I think the Sixers should go for it, and I still think they do make a couple notable moves.
I mean, but let's be honest. There's a chance that they do try to go for it and can't get a deal done because people are making so many jokes. I mean, Lauri Markkanen's worth 4 first round. Like the value of these guys on the trade market are insane right now. You know, it takes two to tango, and you've got to outbid the other team. Can they tread water till Joel comes back if they can't make a big move? If all they do is buy out market additions or just run it as is, I mean, we say it means that Joel won't be back, but it could just mean that they got outbid on every single player. Can they tread water? Because they've looked pretty bad the last, couple games without Joel Embiid out there. Almost deflated to an extent.
They certainly do. I will point out, like, they'll look better when there is D'Anthony Melton in the lineup and when there is Nico Batum. That there have been other injuries beyond just Joel. Marcus Morris has been in and out of the lineup. Tobias in and out of the lineup. So there's been a lot of injuries beyond just Embiid. So I think they'll look better than they did the past few games, but they certainly could use some reinforcements and some additional firepower. I also think we're going to find out a lot about what exactly to expect from Tyrese Maxey from both the short and long term. That I think this stretch without Joel is going to dictate a decent bit of the Sixers' future for what is the long-term plan and ceiling of this guy? Because to this point, he's blown past every single expectation, but it's a different story when you're front and center, the number one name on the opposing scouting report on an every night basis. So it will be cool to watch him kind of play through these growing pains. I do think that's a notable thing to watch from the Sixers from a long-term perspective. I think they'll be fine, and I don't think they're going to slip to the point where they're out of the playoff conversation. Staying in that top 6 and staying out of the play-in is absolutely the priority. I still think they can do that with Maxey and with like enough guys that can get hot, but I think it would be a much easier task if you do bring in some reinforcements.
All right. So real quick, we're talking to Sean Barnard here, Pickspot Media, PSN, Fox the Gambler, everywhere. You got it. Before I let you go here for the day, there's this little football game happening on Sunday. Any thoughts? Any bets? Any predictions on Super Bowl 58 here with the 49ers and the Chiefs?
Yeah, I like the Kansas City Chiefs. That I think that it's pretty much the vast public feeling at this point. But taking Mahomes and Andy Reid on plus money for me is too wild not to. And then it's from the betting perspective. I do like the Isaiah Pacheco rushing yards and a Travis Kelce touchdown. So for me, I do think that it is a Chiefs day on Sunday. And, you know, I'll ride with the Chiefs over this 49ers team for sure.
Do you think it'll be a good game? Because, honestly, it's getting crapped on a lot. That it's just the same old. It's the 49ers and it's the Chiefs. And, you know, I actually think the game could be very entertaining. It's just something we've seen before.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think it'll be entertaining that different identities for the Chiefs team specifically, that we think of them as the high-powered, high-flying offense. They're a defensive first team. So it's going to be cool to see that matchup over-under sitting a little lower than you would expect for both these or for the Chiefs specifically at 47.5 for this matchup. So I think it will be a little bit of a defensive matchup. Maybe that will bore some people, but I think it's going to be some good football. And regardless of your feelings on the two teams, this is our last bit of football for many months. So take advantage of it. Don't take it for granted.
Look, Sean, I know, you know, you guys got a lot of gambling talkers on your channel, but is anybody talking about the Waste Management Phoenix Open and parlay? Like the ultimate bet Super Bowl weekend is picking a winner in the golf event and parlaying it with the Super Bowl. And so you guys got to make sure you're talking about that, you know, getting your guys on. Find the best golf football parlays.
I like that. Yeah. And shout out the Swing It and Ding It podcast, which I produce over there. They're doing a they went into a little bit of the waste management stuff last night. That episode just dropped. So yeah, I'm not as in touch with the golf world personally that I can speak to that, but that would be the dream for sure.
Yeah, I love it. And I would get killed in the comments after you left. I'm now required to ask this of every single guest that comes on the show. Godfather or you got to understand before he answers K1, Sean is like 12 years old. He might not even have seen these movies yet, K1. But Godfather or Goodfellas, Sean?
Yeah, I'll go Godfather. I won't say this is a huge dig my heels in opinion here that I'm not quite my lane that I run in. I'm not a huge movie or TV guy in general. I end up flipping to sports like 10 times out of 10, which I don't know what that says about me fully, but I will go with Godfather just because my uncle would definitely appreciate me going with Godfather.
Gotcha. You're going with your family opinion on that. All right,
Yeah.
so you're running the 1 and 2s, there at Fox the Gambler today, while everybody else is having fun in Vegas. What else you got going on? I'm sure you're going to be appearing everywhere over the next 24 to 36 hours with this deadline happening.
Yeah, we do it as much as possible. So just dropped the episode on Pick Swap Media, kind of with 3 trades that I think the Sixers could do, and so kind of some mindset for the Joel Embiid stuff, all those other things. Also got a Sixers Digest channel that's rolling out with a ton of trade content pumping out there. So check that out. And yeah, for today I'll be locked away in the Fox Sports The Gambler studio, producing for them from 2 to 6, and then the Villanova game later tonight. So busy night for me for sure.
Awesome, Sean. Thank you very much for joining this morning. Go get some coffee in you. Get ready for the rest of the day, and we'll talk again soon, my man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Phil.
All right, thanks, Sean. That was Sean Barnard on the I Have No Sponsor hotline right there. Always appreciate his time. Got lots of comments to catch up on. We'll do a little quick reset here in a second, but before I do that, I got to put up Brett's comment. Casino and Heat. Casino's a great movie. I love it. But Heat is severely underrated, Brett. And you know what else is in that drug gangster range? Blow with Johnny Depp. Blow and if you want to put Blow and Heat, on there, Brett, me and you would have been best friends forever right there. So we're gonna do a quick reset here. You're watching Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. Hit that like button, share button, subscribe button, retweet button, wherever you're watching. Make sure you drop your comments. We're talking Sixers. We're talking the trade deadline. We can talk about anything else. I got other things written down here. Lots to dive into. But I want to try to it's going to be there's over 100 comments. I can't get back. I missed a lot of really good comments. So if there's anything you asked that I didn't address with Sean, re-comment them, and I'll make sure I bring them up because there's some definite good topics there with this trade deadline. Let me see just the last few that I didn't even put up. Yeah, Gracious. Yeah, Godfather, not even a question. Godfather 2, not even a question. Remember, movies are weird to Zoomers here outside doing things and not staring at their phone. Yeah, Blow is intense. It's a great movie, and yeah, spectacular. Extremely underrated and extremely underappreciated in the gangster drug dealing mafia movie realm. We are only good friends on Philly. Yeah, there you go. So real quick, also we did the reset here. You guys asked for it, but also linked in the description of the show. I do have a t-shirt site active with the new shirts. If anybody wants to support shirts, hoodies, stickers, cups, we got the Stop shirt right there. We got the Core 12 shirt available in lots of different colors. You don't have to pick the specific colors that are on the screen. These are ones I just snapped. And of course, the original Fairway to Heaven, not the copycat Live Golf Tour one right there. So make sure you check that out if you're interested in supporting the show. Lots of ways to support the show: super chats, shirts, likes, shares, subscribes. They support the show as well. So make sure you do that. Below is a good movie, but I hate the characters. Bunch of whiny, entitled people. But then they did their job making you hate them. It's like a heel in wrestling. Like if you're cheering the heel, you don't want to cheer. It's really weird because Mister, like I always talk about the Americans and how I love the show The Americans, one of my favorite shows of all time. And the characters, were Russian commie spies, and they made me love them. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. So you want to hate the bad guys, and they do make you do that. Great plot though; it was fantastic. I'd be happy with two of Brogdon, Bogdanovich, Buddy, Murray, or available Bulls, not Levine. Brett, let's get back on topic here with the Sixers with this. I don't know if you get Dejounte Murray. I don't think you can get any of these other names. You might be able to get an Andre Drummond type to back up center, but if you're going, Deontay Murray, that's, as he said, it's going to cost you 3 first-round picks. And I know we got 5 or 6 now going into next year that we could trade, but I think that pretty much, like, if it's do you want Murray and Drummond, or do you want Brogdon, Bogdanovich, and Drummond? And I'm not using those names specific. I'm just generally speaking. Would you rather get a couple players or 1.5 players? And I'm leaning towards the world. I've always wanted. Maybe I'm a little biased because I've always wanted Brogdon on the Sixers. I always thought he would fit well on the Sixers, even before Maxey. Like multiple rooms. I thought Brogdon would have been good next to Ben Simmons to an extent. Or we could have traded for Brogdon in the Ben Simmons scenario. So I'm always a little partial there. You got Bogdanovich, you got Buddy Hield, DeRozan. Would you rather Deontay Murray and Drummond, or DeRozan, Drummond, and somebody else? Or would you rather Murray and Drummond, or Brogdon, Bogdanovich, and Kelly Olynyk? Like, where would your mindset really want to be? I made accusations to Jason. Who? What? When? What? Stop. A lot of people don't like Godfather 3. Godfather 3's only crime is that it wasn't 1 or 2, and that the last act went on forever. Still a great film. I disagree. It was just the reason why I don't like it was it didn't need to be made. He is 100%. But I love Ray Liotta playing his dad, and the depth behind the mom and the dad, and how one didn't care and one did about what he did. Yeah, like, yeah, my mom would turn me in a heartbeat, just like she did. I see a world where Morey gets Atlanta's Bogdanovich and Sadiq Bey. Sadiq Bey is an interesting name. I've got the trade machine up just so I could see contracts and stuff like that to get back to Atlanta's page because I'd gone to Miami for a second. Sadiq Bey's on the last year of his deal. He's only making $4 million. So him and Bogdan. Oops, I clicked the wrong button there. Him and Bogdanovich from the Atlanta. You have to match $23 million in salary, so you'd have to go with Marcus Morris and a Korkmaz to make the money work, and then you'd have to throw in a couple first-round picks probably. But Bogdanovich and Sadiq Bey, it works. You can make it, and that would make you better. Toby isn't going to Atlanta for Murray. Could still trade him for the Pistons. Yeah, Boogie, and him at the Pistons. Maybe you can get a pick out of it. I don't know. They really want Tobias Harris, so there is a chance that could happen. It was a loose autobiography. I don't know how exact to the details it was, but it was a true story. But with every true story, especially in the gangster realm, there's some liberties taken. They never talked to him, Boston George, about the movie. But I do remember, the real Henry Hill talking about Goodfellas and what was accurate and what wasn't. It was done for AMC Gangster Week like a decade ago. You should go back and watch it if you haven't heard Henry Hill talking about Henry Hill and Ray Liotta in Goodfellas. Elton Brand signed Horford when could have signed Brogdon for $80 million. Yeah, overrated, Marshawn. Overrated. I accused Jason during the show of stealing the fairway to have a name from Liv. Oh, yeah, you did. Stop. Wait, stop. We're the original, established 2020. Way bigger, way more. We are. Sorry. Add to my list Cam Johnson and Finney Smith. Finney Smith is a name I've heard a few times. I haven't heard anybody talking about Cam Johnson. They would be nice. Finney Smith would be a nice addition to this team. Cam Johnson wouldn't be bad either. I don't know what his numbers are looking like this year, but they would be good. They would be small moves. And, Sean, again, shout out Sean Barnard joining us here, Fox the Gambler, PSN, PickSwap Media. Everything we talked about there seems like they're 100% set that they're buyers, that they're all in, no matter what with Joel Embiid. I'm still not sure Joel Embiid comes back this year. I'm really not. I'm not sure how he does. I'm not sure if he does. We're not even going to get an answer of an update for 4 weeks. 4 weeks for an update, and then another 4 weeks till he's back. Remember, we are literally going to get Joel Embiid back with 5 weeks left in the season. Maybe less than that. Is it even worth it? Like, Joel Embiid getting him back, risking his future. I don't know. Everybody's dead set that Joel's coming back at the end of the season. Everybody's dead set it's the right thing. Are you putting him at undue risk for the next 3 years by rushing him back? Do you want Joel Embiid rushed on a surgically repaired knee to come out and put that stress that the playoffs bring on that knee? I can't say it's necessarily the right move. I'm not saying it's the wrong move, but I'm not saying it's the right move. Donnie Brasco, it's a good movie. It is. Irishman was good, just weird CGI de-aging. I've not watched The Irishman, and maybe I'm a fugazi for that. But I it's just too long of a movie for me. I don't have the patience to sit through a movie that long anymore. I just don't. If you don't mind reading subtitles, a great foreign gangster film was City of Gods. I hate reading subtitles. What was that TV show? Narcs or whatever it was called. Was it called Narcs? The first season of it, there were so many Spanish subtitles. Quit watching the show because I couldn't handle it. I don't want to read the screen. Maybe that makes me lazy, but I don't want to read the screen at all. Cam Johnson, 13.94%, 20 minutes, 40% on 6-3. That's the key. The 6-3 is a game. We really, really need to get guys that can get their shots up, take multiple three. That's the only reason why I want Klay Thompson. I know he's had a drop off, but we need guys that can shoot the three, that aren't scared to shoot the three. We need guys. If you're going to get a guy that shoots 6 threes a game, you better find another guy too. Smash that like button. Yes. What are we doing? How many likes are there, Eric? Let me refresh my back screen here. We had for early on the show, we had quite a few people watching. Not so many right now. 5 likes only on YouTube right now. What in the good God name are we doing here, people? Right now, there's 10 people watching only on YouTube, and there's only 5 likes. That means 5 people didn't do their job. Irishman was way too long. Yeah. Maybe younger me would have watched it, but old me, I can't sit through it. I've thought about watching it on a plane ride a few times, but I don't travel that far that I need that many hours of TV viewing on a plane for a different type. Yeah, absolutely. City of God was amazing. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I don't even know if I've even heard of it. But anyway, we need guys that are going to shoot the three. We need somebody. I really was hoping there was another name because it just seems like it's Andre Drummond and it's Kelly Olynyk, and that's pretty much it for the backup center role, for that additional center role till Joel Embiid comes back. I was really hoping there was other names available, really, because I still do truly think we need, even if Joel is coming back. But if he's not, you definitely need to find somebody else to play that role. And I have no idea where else you would even find a center that would fit this team, that would help this team. I don't know if there's even any others out there. Um, I would like to see one, but I just don't know where they're going to come from. Um, Somebody mentioned Doc Rivers earlier. I see he lost again last night. They're 1-4 since Doc took over. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. I love it. I love seeing it. I love seeing the Bucks just completely fall apart. I want to pull up the NBA standings right now because he brought it up that nobody's running away with it. We are in the 5 seed. We're 2.5 games up on the Pacers in the 6 seed. We're 4 games up on the play-in tournament, but we're also only 2.5 games behind Cleveland, who's in the 2 seed right now. Cleveland's on a 6-game winning streak, so that's why they've climbed so high. The Bucks aren't going to do much. They're going to collapse. The Knicks are kind of hot, but Julius Randle's still out for a little while. Really, this is a year. It's wide open. You can make a run. This would have been the perfect year. Problem is with play-in, not too many teams are far enough out to be a pure seller. Absolutely agree. And that's where the price and the value of some of these guys, like, in what world is Lauri Markkanen? He's a great player. In what world is he worth 4 first-round picks? Like, no world I live in, none, is Lauri Markkanen worth 4 first-round picks. K1, aren't you impressed I can say Lauri Markkanen? Like, I should be getting a round of applause from him that I could pronounce this name accurately without a problem. So please give me a little golf clap on that one. Um, the best thing about The Irishman was the assassination scenes. Yeah, okay. I see it again. Haven't watched it. Please stop calling him Doc. Just Glenn would suffice. I agree. Um, agree with you 100%. We got T from Twitter checking in. I think the Sixers to just at least try to get something for Tobias. Um, it's really interesting on what to do with Tobias here over the next 36 hours because obviously it seems like Detroit would really like him for some reason. And anybody that watches this show, T, knows I am a Tobias supporter. I think he brings more to the table than people realize in leadership. But he's also having his worst season as a Sixer. So if they want him and you can get Boogie from Detroit for him, I mean, let me pull this up here. Tobias Harris. We're gonna switch my trade machine over to Detroit. Is there anything else I would want from Detroit in the trade? Because you'd be taking back $20 million salary from Bogdanovich there. You'd be giving up 38, so they would have to include something else to even make the money work. You know, are you thinking is Alec Burks an answer? That still wouldn't be enough. I don't even know if you could do Tobias for Boogie. There would have to be some other deal on the table there. But if you can get a draft pick for him in return as well, even if it's a second round pick, I guess you do it. But with Joel Embiid missing most of the rest of the season, you still need a guy to score. He can still put up 20 points a game. I don't know if Joel Embiid hadn't got hurt, I'd be much more adept to moving Tobias Harris. But right now, I kind of feel like you have to keep him and just let him walk or re-sign him to a smaller deal in the offseason. Glenn Shivers, I love that name. I think that's hilarious. I have not seen anybody call him that before. If only Joel could run, then we could make a run. Here we go. Jokes. Yeah, thank you. Lori Markkinen. See, I could do names. Ainge is also the GM. I'm sure he's a pain to deal with for Lori or any Jazz player. Absolutely. Absolutely. No Timu Tobias jersey. No, I don't have a Timu Tobias. Just the Timu Jalen Hurts Kelly-ish green. We're gonna call it Kelly-ish green. Trade Tobias Harris, right? But then you're losing out on almost 20 points a game, Mitch. We need to add more offense, not add offense and subtract offense. Killian Hayes, he was reported as available. Um, yeah, that's so Bogdanovich and Killian Hayes only makes up 27.5 million. And you're giving away Tobias Harris, which is 39 million. So you would have to do Killian Hayes, Bogdanovich, and Alec Burke. And that gets you to the right money. And honestly, the trade machine says the Pistons gain 4 wins and we lose, we're minus 5 wins in that scenario. So I'm not sure that actually helps. He is a good player, but he just don't play when Embiid there. He just don't play. I get it. I get it, my man. I know there's plenty of people, and me one of them, that it's time to move on from the guy. But I can't move on from a guy just to move on from him. I got to be convinced it's the right move. And Detroit, who wants him, I just ran through their entire roster on the trade machine. It does not make sense. You would need a third team to get involved in that deal, probably to facilitate it, at least in my opinion, from Delaware. Is that where T from Dell is? Yeah. I was just saying T from Twitter because, we don't get too many Twitter comments on this show, but we are here live every single morning, 8 a.m. for 90 minutes, talking all things Philly sports and worldly sports. I mean, I got other things to talk about, non Philly sports today on the agenda. We still got about 30 minutes left in the show. It seems like Tobias is protecting his body from injury in case a team trades for him, but I can't really tell because he always plays with limited effort. Tobias Harris would have been a great player in the 90s, in the early 90s, just because he's not quick enough and he's not athletic enough to fit into the modern day NBA where we don't have basketball players. We got athletes playing basketball. Hey, I appreciate it. I'm not always right. I could be proven wrong sometimes. I wasn't right on Aqua Bowman. That's for sure. Inside joke to the core 12. Dick's Warehouse Store has Tobias jerseys on clearance for the last 2 weeks. Get your $5 shirt now, guys. I love it. I love it. Look, I would be disappointed in seeing Tobias go just to go. You better, if you're trading Tobias, there better be a big picture here. You better be bringing in Deontay Murray and Bogdanovich and Andre Drummond. You better be bringing in multiple pieces because otherwise, I don't see where it works or where it makes sense. No more Australian point guards for the Sixers, please. Yeah, Benny Boy. I saw somebody, and this was not sarcasm. I saw somebody on Twitter because Twitter is a crazy ass place. There are some crazy people on. So are the Facebook super groups. And if you know what I mean by the Facebook super fan groups, you know what I'm talking about. There were people out there that were actually asking legitly and seriously for the Sixers to bring Ben Simmons back to the Sixers. Like, what goes through fans' heads when they say this stuff? Like, in no way would you, like, I brought up a scenario where you bring in Markelle Fultz. Makes sense. But you're not bringing Ben Simmons back to Philadelphia ever. 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 Mitchie Poo, you stop it right there. Stop the madness. I buy you a crumb cookie if you're hungry. What did Mitchie Poo say last that we're upset about? Oh, the trade Tobias Harris thing. Man. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the trade Tobias Harris. If there's a value for him, if you're getting something good, fine. Otherwise, I need to get a fair return. It just doesn't work straight up with Detroit, in my opinion. People would love Fultz back. I think Fultz has developed into a very good basketball player. He's healthy. He was hurt to begin the year, but he's healthy now. He shoots better. He still plays great defense. He still gets to the rim. Like I said, he could shoot actually now. He could distribute the ball. He could play the point guard. Fultz and Maxey, you could have a worse backcourt. Wouldn't cost you a lot. He's got an expiring contract. Long, lanky. I, you know, I would welcome Markelle Fultz at the right price back with open arms. Is it a way we can get Jimmy Butler back? Absolutely, I would love it. Before Joel Embiid had to have surgery, I was talking on this show, T, about why not. If you're going to go all in, go all the way in. And you know how you go all the way in? You bring buckets back, and hopefully he wears 23, and I can rock that jersey again. You know, I've never taken that jersey down, T. I still wear it in public. Okay, I love him. I would love to see him back. Now, a deal is complex. I had it up earlier. I'm gonna do it again. Sixers, Miami. Your question is, if you bring Jimmy Butler back, he's still under contract for 2 more years. So all that cap flexibility you have out the window. Okay, in that scenario, you have to put Tobias Harris in the deal to get the money there. You would have to go with, let's see, I don't even know if that is enough money wise. It is okay. So you would go Tobias Harris, Springer, and 2 first-round picks. They want to move on from Jimmy Butler, I think, the Heat. And I wouldn't be shocked if Jimmy Butler got traded at this deadline in the next 36 hours. They're trying to refresh to an extent that Miami Heat organization. And I think moving on from Jimmy Butler and that $45 million a year the next couple of years, they're going to want to do it. So you might not have to include a massive amount of picks. I do it. And I think you make your team better. There's a scenario where I get rid of Tobias Harris. They would love the Miami Heat, his expiring contract. You get off the books with Jimmy Butler. You throw in a first round pick, maybe a second one, protect it. You get the deal done. You throw in one of your young players like Springer or KJ Martin. You make them happy and you get it done. That would be the answer to Joel Embiid. Be like, yo, we're all in. Get yourself healthy. We could have had half of the Villanova guys who are killing in New York, but our GM, yeah. Well, you know me, Eric. You've been watching my stuff for a long time. You know my thoughts on Daryl Morey and his James Harden fascination. Sorry, Marshawn. I'm done my rant. Had to get that off my chest. Yeah. It's no good for you. Yeah. That's the thing. Why having all this capital, like there's free eight, this blah, 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 blah. I can't speak right now. That's why having all this cap space in the offseason is meaningless because you're going to overpay players. Because who's going to be available this offseason isn't going to be that good. So you trade your picks, you get guys now, you use up that cap space that way. Harris has fleeced the NBA for $250 million in his career. with another 80 to 100 coming before he retires. Hey, you're criticizing him for it? I'm giving him a round of applause. The dude got paid. The dude's a mediocre basketball player. He's a better basketball player than you're giving him credit for, but he's good. He's not great. He is not obviously worth a max deal. You know what? He got it. He wasn't going to turn the max deal down. The thing that always gets me worked up is that all the people that are constantly, well, he wasn't worth the contract. Well, was he supposed to turn the contract down? You're worth $20 million. Somebody offers you $40 million. Or you say, I'm not really worth that. I'm going to say no. Pay me less. Of course he's going to get his bag. Of course he's going to take advantage of his bag and get it. Why wouldn't he? He'd be nuts not to. Okay, but it's beyond spilled milk. He's at the end of the contract, which makes him valuable in the trade deadline. I get it. But the problem is also this team as constructed, with Joel Embiid missing most of the rest of the regular season. Tobias Harris gets buckets most of the time. Tobias Harris still can get his shot off at times. He can still put up 20 points a game. He's still one of your locker room leaders. Maxey ain't a leader yet. Joel's hurt. You take Tobias Harris off the team, who's leading this team in the locker room? I mean, maybe Maxey takes a step forward in that. You got Pat Beverly and Marcus Morris, maybe if he sticks around. But that's it. Like, Tobias is that locker room leader. And there is something to having somebody that everybody in the locker room looks to. There is an element of importance to that leadership role. This is a safe space. This is always a safe space to say what you feel. Sometimes I agree. Sometimes I disagree. But it's a safe place. But again, can I just remind everybody that Glenn Rivers is 1-4 in Milwaukee? I love it. I love it. What's more likely to happen? The Milwaukee Bucks fall out of the top six, or the Sixers fall out of the play-in. I don't know. Dombrowski just said on WIP that they had a quiet offseason, but Phillies have no glaring holes. Did he say that? Live on WIP just now. You know what that is, Brett? That's Dave Dombrowski being a smart GM and him trying. He's in the middle of a contract negotiation with somebody, and he's trying to say, we don't really need you. You come to our asking price. We're not going to your asking price because we're good. There's no way he really thinks that there's no holes on this team. So I think it's more of a marketing tactic to the free agents he's talking to. That would be my hope, at least. Not my best guess, my best hope. When is KD, Kevin Durant, ask out? I don't know. Phoenix. I said it when they brought in Bradley Beal. That's just going to be a disaster in Phoenix. And it's not working out too great. There is no reason to keep crying about the contract. It's like your ex-wife celebrating her 10-year marriage with the other guy, and you still complaining. Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining about the contract. I'm not worried about it. The contract's over. I like Harris, did what he's supposed to do to get the bag, but he's not the only player that robbed the NBA. Absolutely. There are so many guys that are overpaid. NBA contracts and the way they do it, the way the salary cap and the contracts are structured and all, far too many guys get big bags that they don't deserve. But it's just the way of the NBA. And I stand by this. You're obviously new here to the show, T, but I've been saying it since day one. They had no choice but to give him that contract because you couldn't trade what they traded for him and Jimmy Butler combined and let both of them walk. They didn't choose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. They chose, Ben Simmons and Brett Brown over Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler said, peace out, deuces. They're like, all right, we got to keep Harris now. Can't trade all those assets and just lose it all. So, Harris got what he got. And good for him. I never get upset when people get a big payday. If they choose the worst team in the league to get the biggest payday from, when you're an athlete and you got a chance to secure a bag, you do it. You worry about the reputation and everything else later. You get your money. Glenn. Good old Glenn Rivers, my man. It's not just a contract. It's that we did not choose him over Jimmy Butler. How many times can I say that? We chose Brett Brown and Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler. And Tobias Harris. So Ben Simmons screwed Tobias Harris over more than anything else. Because if we choose Jimmy Butler over them, or tell Jimmy or that Brett Brown and Ben Simmons, look, we're keeping Jimmy Butler whether you like it or not. There's the door if you don't like it. Then the Tobias thing doesn't happen. I still say, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again for the rest of my time, that if we just run that team back with Tobias, with JJ Redick, with Jimmy Butler, all of them, and we give them a whole offseason together, we bring them back, we win the title the next year. I stand firm by that. I believe that was our opportunity to win a title. We missed out on it, damn it. Maybe a few years ago I'd have been okay with this. I don't. When he bought a stake in the Union, I thought it could happen. KD's still a great offensive player, but I'm not pining for KD in Philly, in South Philly. I'm not out there in his analogy bag. That analogy wasn't there. I know. Brett, it's also taking that Jimmy money and signing Horford with it. Brogdon went for $80 million. Yeah. Showing Liam how it's done at ML 33. Who's Marshawn Lynch 33. Sorry, I didn't even notice that. The Brett Elton GM situation was bad. Yeah. Brett was enabled to do what he wanted, not hold people accountable. Ben Simmons was enabled by Brett Brown to do whatever he wanted, never held accountable. I still remember in my early days, there was a game where Ben Simmons had like 9 turnovers in the first half. I'm like, Brett Brown can make a statement and change the course of this team's history by benching Ben Simmons in the second half of a game to tell him that this is no longer acceptable. He didn't. Ben Simmons went on to have more turnovers in the second half, and we lost a close game by like 3 or 4 points. It was a meaningless middle of a season basketball game. I don't remember what year, 2019, 2020, whatever it was. I don't remember. But they had a chance to change the trajectory of this team and the accountability on this team, and they didn't. You lost Jimmy Butler because of it. Elton Brand, I don't even know if he's the worst. Like, because he's not even a GM anymore. He's the GM. He's basically Daryl Morey's coffee boy. Like, I don't even know. Like, if I was Elton Brand, I would have asked out by now because he's already gotten his bag. Now he needs to prove that he's an actual capable GM. He needs to move on somewhere else and out of Daryl Morey's shadow. Or we need Daryl Morey out of here and just let Elton Brand redo his thing. I don't care. Compounding the Mikel for Zeri, and a first mistake was trading for Tobias and signing him over Jimmy and signing Horford. Again, we didn't sign Tobias over Jimmy. Tobias was signed because of Jimmy. I don't know how many more ways and how many more times I can explain this to people. It was the other way around. Tobias was the result of Jimmy leaving. Elton Brand swung for the fences. Not man. Exactly. The trades to bring Butler and Harris here. You know, we could have won a title that year. We needed to run it back and give it another chance. And we did. Elton signed Horford and traded for Richardson. Not a good start. You know, Richardson's putting up some numbers this year. Still out there. I like Josh Richardson. I thought he was a good player. Not good for this team. He's an underrated player. He didn't sign him over Jimmy. He signed him because Jimmy left. Exactly. I've said it 1,000 times just in the last week alone. It's pretty plain to see. You couldn't let them both walk. And people forget, we traded more assets to get Tobias Harris than we did Jimmy Butler. I forget all the details. We gave up more for him than Jimmy Butler. It is what it is. Everyone that Embiid wanted to keep, they got rid of. Yeah. Poor Joel. Wasting away. Not in Margaritaville. Man, it's frustrating. It really is. I'm telling you, that team would have won a title if they ran it back. Trade for Zeri Smith. Is he even in the league, Smith? Zeri? Like, I know obviously he had his issues, and I know we got rid of him eventually. Is he even in the league anymore? I don't know. Someone tell me if he's playing anywhere. Might be overseas at this point. Tobias Harris over me was always meant for Elton. Yeah. But see, the thing is, they didn't choose him. That's Jimmy Butler. Yeah, Jimmy Butler just calling out Elton for not giving him the bag and not letting him stay here. It wasn't meant to crush Tobias Harris. Could you imagine if they brought in Jimmy Butler and not moved on from Tobias Harris and brought the two of them back? That would be interesting. having the two of them in the same locker room. Making a guy a GM with only 1 year of experience in his executive was Harris putting Elton in a bad spot too. Yeah, I mean, what was he? He was the Blue Coats? What were they called? The 87ers at the time, or whatever they were called. He was the GM for a year of that team, and then you put him in the GM role here in the big club. It's not good business. Stop trolling. I almost added you to the Maury on site great kicking list. 2 firsts for Tobias in that clip. Yeah, think about that. We gave up 2 first-round picks for Tobias. Once Jimmy was going, you couldn't let Tobias go. That would have been the end of Elton Brand's career. When we hear about a 4th Korkmaz trade request, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Kirkon, I can't believe he's still on this team. I really can't. And getting minutes now because of all the injuries. Elton Brand got us the closest to a championship. He's the one that put together the roster with Jimmy Butler. I think that's actually a very fair. I don't know if you're joking or not, but I think that was a very fair comment. I mean, we were the closest to win the title with that group, and he built that group. He just didn't know how to keep the group together. And the way you keep the group together was tell Brett Brown, kick the rocks, or hold Ben Simmons more accountable. Figure out a way to make it work. They would have done that. The history of the Sixers team would be totally different. Yeah, but Ben and Brett is who the Sixers chose. It's 1,000% accurate. It's what I've been saying for 100 times now. Eric, calm down. Put the Elton Brand poster away for a second. Oh, man. I will say Elton did trade 2 seconds for Burks and Robinson when this bench needed juice badly. Yeah, they were good moves. They were good. Elton Brand wasn't all disaster as a GM. It's nothing the Sixers can do right now, and Morey is banking on this summer. But there's nothing going to happen this summer. And I'm not on on the side that says we have to go all in and make massive trades or anything right now. I'm not. Because I still don't believe 100% that Joel will play again this season. But I kind of feel like you have to attack this trade deadline with the offseason in mind, knowing that you got all this cap space in the offseason, but there's nobody to use it on. You might want to bring these guys in now. Get them in here now. Get them in the building. Get them working with this team. Luck down the Fultz trade that brought us Maxey. That might be his legacy. I mean, that could be a good legacy to have, right? I still don't think Jimmy Butler ever wanted to play in Philly. He's friends with Wade. I don't know. He wanted to play with Joel. And I think Jimmy Butler did connect with the fan base here very well. He's got that blue collar, hardworking, Philadelphia mindset that makes him fit into the city really well. Brand is a Duke guy, yes. I'm old school Big East UConn. Gotcha. That's what it is. This team needed help when Joel was healthy. Get a long-term help like Brogdon. It helps this and next year. To me, right now, if you had to put a gun to my head and I had to say I have to make one move, I am making that move for Brogdon because you got him here this year and next year. That would be my number one dream move because I think it helps big picture the most. It might not fill the void missing Joel Embiid the rest of this year. But big picture, Brogdon and Maxey as your backcourt for this year and next, I think it's a smart move. And I want it. Fantastic legacy to have. Yeah. It's nothing this summer. If I'm Embiid, I'll rest until put pressure on them. Yeah. At what point does Joel Embiid say, I want out? It's a conversation someday we might have to have. If he's not playing again this season, it makes no sense to be buyers, does it? I mean, I would think not, K1. But knowing what the free agent and the offseason looks like, maybe you get a jump start on the offseason now. You start reshaping next year team this year. These guys get in now and start learning Nick Nurse's system now, how to work with Tyrese Maxey now versus in the offseason. Teams get desperate at the deadline. Sometimes they'll trade away a player cheaper than you think. I really want it for, but I really want to get rid of him, so I'll take 3 picks. Philly's still in love with Jimmy. Ugh. That's why he said, "I wish I was still playing on this team after beating the Sixers in Philly to send us home." Yeah, that really rubbed me the wrong way when he said that. If I was a Heat fan, I would have been pissed. A backcourt of Brogdon, Maxey, Bev, and Melton, healthy, pretty good. It's damn good. I don't think enough's been said about how good Pat Beverly. I expected Pat Beverly to help this team. I didn't expect him to play the way he is. Um, but I think the other thing is you bring in Brogdon, Melton on your bench is amazing. It makes your bench better, deeper. You got a guy that can jack up threes on the bench. You got a guy that can play great perimeter defense on the bench. I think it has a win-win. You get a proper backcourt mate for Maxey, and Melton goes to where he belongs. He has the Philly mindset that they need that type of player. I still will call Miami. If Daryl Morey hasn't at least called Miami and said hello, um, then I think he's doing a disservice to this team. I still got is this the Miami roster up here? Yeah, I got the Miami roster. They got anybody else on their team? Somebody had mentioned Caleb Martin. He's getting 6.9 million this year next. Duncan Robinson, he's still making way too much money. Josh Richardson, you could get in here cheap for a bench player. Don't need that. Nikolai Jovic. I thought I saw Jokic. I was like, what? Yeah, there's not much you could want on this team. I think the Heat already realized they made a mistake in trading for Terry Rozier. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I'm not sure. How crazy was Jimmy saying he wished he was still playing on this team? That's a hell of love. Um, it's crazy. If I was a Heat player, I'd be pissed. If I was a Heat fan, I'd be pissed. Um, I would love to be living down in South Beach. It would be pretty cool. I like Melton. He plays hard. I was a huge fan of him, T, when we got him, because I watched a lot of Grizzly basketball back when he was with the Grizz. Because I like John Morant. I mean, John Morant's an interesting character and personality now, whatever. But there was a stretch when he was last year with Memphis that John Morant missed a couple weeks worth of games, and D'Anthony Melton. I saw those games, and it's like this kid's got something, but I don't think he's supposed to be a starter. I don't. I think he's a 20-minute a game bench guy. I'm calling Miami 2T. Yeah, I think we should be. Miami wants to offload that Robinson money bad. Yeah. I don't know. How's Duncan Robinson even play? Is he even playing? Like I know last year he was out of the rotation. Let me see. He's averaging 13 points a game this year. Wow. 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Let me see his numbers here. He's shooting 39.9% this year from 3. It's not bad. I think he's doing okay this year. Let me see how many even page not found. When I clicked on his player profile, it said page not found. That's what they think of Duncan Robinson. Hell, with it more call somebody. Yeah. Just somebody. Just make a move. See, I don't want just any move. I want moves that make sense. Yeah, I think they would value our expiring contracts. I think Tobias for Jimmy Butler, the parameters would be based there and it would work. And I think it could work. If they trade for Clay, Phil will have a Joker smile on Friday. I don't know. I like the idea of Clay. I do. I know he stinks this year in comparison. I know he's old. He's on the last year of his deal. Move one expiring contract for another. Get a guy with championship pedigree. Struggling. Maybe a fresh start reinvigorates, lights a fire under Clay. Clay's going to be 34 this offseason. He still wants one more contract. Somebody's going to give him a 3-year contract. Maybe. I'm game for it. Malcolm Brogdon reminds me of Andre Miller. I like that comparison. I was a huge Andre Miller fan. Heady point guard, he could definitely help. I haven't seen enough. I don't remember Malcolm, but Andre Miller had a weird release on his shot too. Never thought it was going in, but it always went in. He was a really good player. Just reported Hawks don't have any deals on the table for Amherst that include a first-round pick. There's gonna be so many rumors floating around. I just got the mud joke. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. All right, guys. Final 2 minutes of the show here. Didn't cover. Debo Samuel running his mouth again. Idiot. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Jacob Media being broke. Didn't cover that. We didn't cover the ESPN, Fox Sports, TNT Sports, the joint venture, merger, whatever today. We can leave that on the table for tomorrow. Didn't cover. Marshawn was there watching last night. My appearance on Edge of Philly over under recap show. I had some doozy doozy of our predictions that went wrong this year for the Philadelphia Eagles. So we didn't get into any of that. We spent the whole day talking Sixers. And honestly, because based off of any rumors that happened, we're going to be talking about them again tomorrow. Did you see Asante's interview about Donovan? No, I will write it down. Asante on Donovan. Written down. I'll look it up when I get to work later. A rumor is Hawks think they'll get a package of first expiring contracts and one good young player. They probably will. Move that makes sense. I like Clay. Him with Embiid might be nice with Maxey. I agree. All right. Got lots on the agenda tomorrow. T, you're the new guy today. Just going to say, make sure you tune in every day, 8 a.m., 90 minutes, 5 days a week. Guys, make sure you check out my T-shirt store, linked in the bio of the show on Facebook and YouTube. The original Fairway to Heaven, not the copycat. The Core 12 shirt, now live on the site. And, of course, the Stop shirt. Great way to support local podcasters is by supporting their T-shirt sites and stuff like that. Watch Asante's thoughts on, oh, geez, I don't even want to know. Guys, the most important way you can support this show is hitting that like button, that share button, that subscribe button, that retweet button, that follow button. Wherever you're watching, tell everybody to come join the Trending in the AM family, the growing, the best damn show there is in the morning in Philly. Don't bitch and complain about the other channels. Just stop watching the other channel. I saw the other channel on the dial. Their topic today has Jalen Hurts already peaked. Like, seriously. You got the NBA trade deadline going on. Do we really want to talk about Jalen Hurts and whether he peaked or not? No. Stop. Stop it. Jalen Hurts is still the man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I always shout out to Sean Barnard. He's been on this show countless times. Love his time. He's doing great work, too. I mean, he is one of the rising stars in Philadelphia media right now. That guy's going to have a long career talking basketball and sports in this city. He actually shows Andy the ultimate respect. Wow, okay. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look it up after the show, or send me a link to it if you can. Just watch it. I will. I got you. Guys, we're already into overtime here with no super chat. So we're going to wrap this up, Trending the AM, right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel. It's always to end every show very simple with a Go Birds.